Welcome to Bee's Travelogue, episode 59. In September, for the Chuseok holiday, I took the bus to the KTX train station in Mokpo. After 2.5 hours, we reached Seoul. Once again, I had 4 days worth of clothes in my backpack, so the first thing I did was go to the Thai restaurant I had discovered during my December vacation. From there, I walked about half an hour to the Airbnb I had booked. This was the first time I had booked a room within a home with access to shared spaces. When I arrived, I met the owner, an Egyptian man who had a Mexican wife, and they were home on and off while I was there. I was trying to get to one of the subway stops and took what I thought was the shortest and most direct way. I ended up in the grounds of a high school. It was very beautiful, but I had to backtrack and walk all the way around to get to the subway. My destination was Naksan Park. In several K-dramas, I had seen actors walk along the city wall, climbing up the steps and overlooking the city, and I wanted to get to a wall like that. I didn't pay very close attention to the map or the street signs. I just picked a side street and walked in the direction that I wanted to go. I ended up in a Vietnamese neighborhood with lots of little shops and very steep and narrow streets. When I finally came to the wall, I realized that I could have gone all the way from the bottom to the top following the wall. I had just ended up in a side street walking parallel to it. I found a gazebo with a beautiful view and rested for a bit, drank some water and ate some food. And then I headed further up the mountain to see what else there was to see. After about 10 minutes walk, I reached another overlook that was looking out over the northern and western part of the city. The mountains in this area were really tall and beautiful. As you can see, there were many high-rises and lots of new construction. It was the middle of the afternoon, and I thought I really wanted to stay and watch the sunset from here. So I looked for things to do to pass the time. I don't know if you noticed Lotte Tower in the pictures that just went by. Here now you can see Naksan Tower in the distance. I walked alongside the wall towards the city a little bit to an area that was marked as having a lot of street art, so I went in search of the paintings. It wasn't just paintings, however. The houses were painted bright colors, but there were also figures like this duck and cats in the next picture. There was this flower or several flowers made out of wire. I headed further down and came to steep stairs overlooking the city westward. At this point, I turned around and headed back up, but through different alleys to look for different artwork. As you can see, the roads were very steep and sometimes very narrow. I met a woman from Australia and we talked for a little bit, and I learned that in Australia you get a long vacation for every 10 years that you work, which I thought was really interesting and I had never heard before. In these photos looking eastward, you can see Lotte Tower again in the distance. Next, I followed the wall and went down the hill. There was a very wide path next to the wall, and a lot of people were using it for exercise. Some were walking, some were jogging, and there was one old man who was using a walker to get some walking practice in. The views were pretty spectacular. Here is Lotte Tower again, and then this other neighborhood that looked very interesting and that I wanted to check out. So I walked back up the hill and into this neighborhood to see how people were living in this area. I found this emergency fire hydrant kit, special doors, and just lots of narrow streets and colorful houses. The sun was finally going down, but still not fast enough. However, the changing light really helped to contrast the colors of the clouds on the opposite side. Very deep grays and bright white. Lots of people walked their dogs here or went to the restaurants that were lining the road. I walked back to the gazebo to sit down for a little bit and saw this couple taking pictures in front of the sunset. Once the sun had set, I crossed over to the opposite side of the street and watched the city in the eastern part where the clouds were pink and purple now. They looked like a spaceship sitting over the city and reminded me of the movie Independence Day. Before I had left America, one of the last paintings I was working on was actually a painting of Seoul after sunset, with Naksan Tower in the distance and the wall in the front. My goal had been to find the exact location where the photo had been taken. Wanting to see all angles of Seoul at different times of day, I headed back to the northern part to see the lights come on in front of the mountains. Just as I was enjoying this beautiful view, mosquitoes suddenly came out of nowhere. There hadn't been a single mosquito earlier in the day, but as soon as the sun set, they were out in full force. They were literally bombarding me, so I headed down the mountain quickly. I thought that this spot here was approximately like my painting, with the wall in the foreground and Naksan Tower in the background. But when I later compared it, I found out that I was actually in a complete opposite part of town, and that Seoul does not just have one area with the city wall like this, but there are 4 different places where you can go to the city wall. However, the sunset was spectacular, and I did not regret coming to this area and spending all day watching the lights come on in Seoul. A lot of people were walking down the mountain with me. The moon was out and the lights were on alongside the wall, so it wasn't difficult to see where we were going. It was a very pretty walk and got even prettier as we got further down the hill and closer to the town. There was actually still a part of a fortress at the bottom of the hill that I had missed because I didn't go all the way down early in the afternoon. I headed up too early. There was this beautiful church tower and an area with grasses where people were sitting and had been watching the lights come on. Also, the city gate looked much better at nighttime than it had during the daytime. Please join me for my awesome day 2 in Seoul. Thanks for watching.